Some honourable member care to move that the House take note of miscellaneous business? The Honourable Dr. Jonathan Coleman.
Mr. Speaker, the Labor Party ironically and unwisely chose October 21st as the day it announced its deputy leader. That was ironic and unwise because October the 21st was the official Back to the Future Day. That was the day that was supposed to be so far in the future that everything would be completely different. And of course, the world is completely different, apart from the fact Mrs. King is still here. But in one weird, wacky, tiny little enclave, the world has not moved on, Mr. Speaker, and that is the New Zealand Labor Party. So as Labor delegates move towards Palmerston North this weekend for their annual conference, held in the seat of King's College old boy and closet aristocrat Ian Lees-Galloway, it's timely to revisit notes from Labor conferences past. And what better place to start than the last time the Labor Party held their conference in Palmerston North, back in 1991. That, Mr. Speaker, was an occasion of searing self-examination for the party. And I have here, Mr. Speaker, the official notes from that 75th conference in Palmerston North, and I'm happy to quote from them. And it says in those notes, the Labor Party Council received an audit of the 1990 election. An analysis of questionnaires gave familiar phrases. We declared ourselves disunited, and under that label came all the comments on caucus, the party and musical leaders. Despite declaring our policies inappropriate, we also declared that we had lost our direction. Our policies were both wrong and nebulous. Mr. Speaker, it is indeed back to the future for the Labor Party at Palmerston North this weekend. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if Dunedin South comms and strategy expert Claire Curran will give a breakout group, perhaps updating us on international politics. She might like to update Labor Party members on her September the 13th post, where she said, "Now the UK has Jeremy Corbyn and I feel a greater sense of hope." This is good news. Yes, resident hipster Jacinda Ardern will still be mixing the decks. Bloke, tight-head prop Grant Robertson will be trying to give everyone a rundown on the Rugby World Cup, but in actual fact, nothing has changed. But wait, there is one small announcement. Deputy Leader Annette King tells us that she will be saying something small about health policy. Mrs. King, why not make it absolutely huge? Why not blow the budget like you did in the mid-2000s, where you poured more and more money into it and delivered less and less? That's the way to go, because, Mr. Speaker, she's had 7 years to come up with a big idea. Why make it a small one? Meanwhile, back in planet New Zealand, the rest of us are celebrating a great Rugby World Cup win. And what a great win it was. And, Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege of being over there at the Rugby World Cup. There were thousands of Kiwis there, Mr. Speaker, and I only met one Kiwi there who was a passionate advocate for Labor Party policies, Mr. Speaker. That was Andrew Little himself. But apart from that, people were saying not only was it a lucky escape from the Springboks, but a very lucky escape from a Labor Party government, because, Mr. Speaker, Kiwis are very grateful that that mob over there are not in power, because they know what their tax and spend policies would do to this country, Mr. Speaker. When you look at our 7 years, it's a record of solid achievement, Mr. Speaker. The average wage up $10,000 in the last 10 years, Mr. Speaker. Reducing ACC levies, Mr. Speaker. And of course, record low interest rates, meaning Kiwis are able to borrow money at a lower cost and get on with their lives. More people in jobs. The future is looking up, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the health system, I was down at Canterbury yesterday at the rebuild there of the Burwood Hospital. That's $1 billion the government is putting into the rebuild in Canterbury in terms of health. An extra $16 million in revenue poured into Canterbury yesterday, Mr. Speaker. 5,500 more doctors around the country, 60,000 more appointments, 50,000 more operations per year. Mrs. King would pour money in for fewer results and blow the surplus, because that's what would happen. There's no sense over there of an overriding fiscal strategy. So, Mr. Speaker, if anyone is at a really loose end this weekend, pull on your vintage EPMU T-shirt, get to Palmerston North and party with Grant and Jacinda like it's 1991. Kia ora.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Kelvin Davis.